welcome to Hidden Gems. Today I'm interviewing E.H. Graham, author of The Window. So thank you for being here today and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you used to be a children's author. So what did you used to write?
Yeah, I'm a speech language pathologist, and I have wrote and am still working on a series called Talking Tales. And the series is designed to help with speech development by each book focusing on a core sound or group of sounds in the English language. And by reading that story to your child, they get a good auditory understanding just because that word's repeated in all the various word positions and blends multiple times. Their brain gets a good understanding of that's what that sound is supposed to sound like. And then they have opportunities to practice it through the repetitious words and phrases within the book. So I've written 5 books so far. I have a 6th one coming out in that series. Hopefully before Christmas is the targeted release date, but we all know how that goes sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little more about the children's series I've written.
You have to send me some links to those books. I'll share them for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And if anybody's interested or has any questions, they can certainly contact me, and I'll send you a link for my website for those books too.
I'll put that on the blog for you. So how did you actually go from writing children's books to adults? So, and how, did you always want to do that?
To be honest with you, I wrote material for young adults and adults much longer than I even had a desire to write for children's books, or even before I had a desire to write for kids. But I was always very nervous to make that work public for some reason. Kids were less intimidating for me, and it has to do with my job, so it just seemed easier to write for kids for me. So I've always had a desire to write for young adults and adults. And it wasn't until this opportunity with the Bulwark anthology that I actually had an opportunity. It was kind of a good transition for me, a good introduction into writing for those genres.
Okay, thank you. It's weird you say that I'm intimidated to write the other way around. I find it hard to write for kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary because it's very specific genre to write for, isn't it?
It is, and you're not just writing for the kids, which makes it a little more challenging. You're writing for the kids, but you also have to write for their parents too. If the parents don't enjoy reading the book, they aren't going to read it to their kids. They're going to find other books that they want to read to their kids. So you actually have to write for both in a way. But it's not writing just specifically for adults. And I don't know why. That just seemed more intimidating for me.
Okay. So which do you prefer, the adult or the children's fiction?
I actually like them both for very different reasons. I have 2 little ones myself, and I love writing stories that entertain kids. I love being able to go to their schools and encourage kids to read and hopefully encourage future readers as they get older. But adults is very different. I get to get deeper with adults, and I get to write about deeper topics and just more intense topics than I would with kids. So I like them both. I would say equally, but for very different reasons.
Okay, thank you. I can hear a dog in the background. Have you got a dog?
I do, yes. And he's doing his own.
I love dogs. They're so cute. They've got those you feel sorry for them, don't you, with those eyes they give you?
Oh, they do, yes. Have food or they want something. Yeah, he's a lab Doberman mix back there, and he hears me talking, and he's wanting up here with me, which I'll let him up when I'm done here.
Sounds like he wants to be on camera. Do you want to show your dog?
I'd have to actually go down. He's actually pinned downstairs right now, so I'd have to let him up. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to send you a picture of him though, and you can post that too.
Oh, please, I love him. Lost track where I am now. Sorry.
Distracting. That's what I was hoping that from doing, but.
Okay. Right. So you said that the book is based on Bulwark. If I pronounce it right?
Yes.
So how did you get that opportunity?
I actually, the author of Bulwark, Britt London, actually had reached out to me. She knew I was interested in writing some adult work. She'd read some of my short stories, and she knew me from my kids' literature that I do. And she reached out to me, and she said, "Hey, we are writing this anthology. It's a collection of short books. I think you might be a really good fit for it. Would you be interested in maybe pitching an idea and seeing what we think? So I did that. I read Bulwark, and I had an idea, and I pitched it to her and R.L. Jackson, who also helped out with coming up with this series, and they loved it. So I just went forward from there. I wrote it, I submitted it, and it ended up becoming one of the books in the Bulwark anthology.
Okay. So what inspired the story that you wrote, or did they tell you what to write?
We had free reign of what we wanted to write. We did have to kind of run our ideas by each other because we're all writing in the same. We were writing stories all within the same town, and a lot of our stories, our characters might overlap or storylines might overlap a little bit. So we had to do a lot of talking amongst each other to make sure that all of our books fit within each other. But I did get the story idea. I was reading Bulwark, and I'm not going to give away too much for those who haven't read it yet. But I was reading the story, and it is about a sheriff who, him and his wife, their daughter is stolen from their home. And it is about them going through those trials and him entering this journey, this mystery of trying to figure out what happened to their daughter. And while I'm reading this, I was thinking, what if this story was retold, but from the viewpoint of a woman who's homebound and her only access to the outside world is the window outside of her house. And she lives right across from the sheriff and his wife, and she's seen this mystery unfold. And before she knows it, this window, she thinks she's watching it all from behind the window, but before she knows it, she's pulled into the middle of this mystery that they're facing. So it was very much inspired by Bulwark, but I did have a lot of liberty to create the story that I wanted.
Thank you. I really did love the ending to that. I'm not going to tell anyone, but it was. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So, you're going to write another book for the series. Did you want to tell me about that?
Yes, I would love to tell you about that. The next book for the series is in progress now. We just released a 9th book. Britt London released another one called The Devil and Dana Dalton, which is fantastic. I would highly recommend that one as well. And many of the authors who wrote for the original series are writing a second book, either related to their first or completely separate. And we have some new authors joining the team as well. And those are going to be released we're going to spread them out a little bit. So mine should not be the next book coming out, but the one after that. And once people have read the window, there were a lot of questions left open at the end of the window that I left open on purpose so somebody else could pick up the story if they wanted. They invited me to write another book in the series, and I've decided to pick that up. So this one will answer some questions from the end of the window, and it's going to take place from Jim's point of view, who's kind of a secondary character that you met in my first book.
Okay, thank you. So, do you remember me sending you the "What Happens Next" thing? Have you come up with something to add to it?
I'm working on it.
Okay, I'll add that on later on for you then. So, if you could say one thing about your book to people watching this, what would it be?
If I could say one thing, not necessarily about my book, but I'd like to tell people something about the series as a whole. And that is that, as I kind of mentioned, all these books take place in a town called Bulwark. And anybody who's grown up in any town ever, which is everybody pretty much, right? We know that not everybody experiences a town in the same way that somebody else will. We're going to have our own points of views and our own experiences that shape how we feel about that town. And that is what's fantastic about this series, is that since different authors have written it, we all have our own interpretations and our own spins on the town, and it makes it a very interesting series to read. So I would just say to people interested in this, I would check it out. All the books, you can read them in any order you want. You can read them individually, or you can read the series as a whole. You could start with the first book, which is Bulwark, if you want to get a good base understanding. But like I believe you started in the middle with mine, you can start anywhere you want. So I would highly recommend check out the series. We have a little bit, there's a few of the books. We have a little bit of something for everyone. We have mystery, we have suspense and thriller, we have romance of all different heat levels. We also have some storylines that are just they're just kind of twisted. I don't know a better way to put that, and it makes them very interesting. So I encourage you to go check them out, see which ones might interest you, pick up 1, 2, or better yet, check out the whole series to get a good understanding of the town, and stay in touch because we're coming out with a lot more here in the near future.
Thank you. I'll put a link to all the books on the blog if you want me to.
That would be fantastic.
I'll do that. Thank you so much for talking to me today, and I hope to speak to you again for your next book.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was great talking to you too.
Spunky lay in silence as his heart continued to race. His family had succumbed to the embrace of sleep, but his still rampaging adrenaline piqued his alertness. The frantically pounding beat of his heart overwhelmed his body. The thought of journeying into deep space made Spunky's stomach turn. Why hadn't he listened? Spunky looked down on the slowly rising chests of his family. If he had just done what was expected of him, they would not be bound in this chamber, hurling into the darkness of the universe. His heart slowed. The pounding of his blood racing through his veins no longer assaulted his head. Spunky allowed his arms to relax on the base of the chamber while his side pressed against his mate's back. A dark shadow crept inward from the edges of Spunky's vision. His chest rose in deep inhalation before exhaling into the darkness of sleep.